Hi, Clint Coons here with Anderson Business Advisors, and in this video we are going to discuss apartment investing. All right, so if you have apartments, multifamily units, how best should you structure those properties? Well, you probably already have an idea that with multifamily investing, they should go inside of a limited liability company. You would never want to put an apartment building inside of a corporation, especially, a C corporation, because there are negative tax ramifications that would come from that. And the LLC offers us more flexibility with the ownership if we have other investors that are coming in to invest with us in that deal. Corporations, they're a little more difficult to work with to take advantage of or address issues with other investors that we're bringing in. Let's say we have waterfall provisions where the first three investors that we brought in, they're going to get the first $75,000 in profit before I'm going to collect anything off the deal. And keep in mind, what I'm talking about now is not syndications. Syndications, you're going to need a securities attorney. This is just, a few friends, you decide to come together and put a multifamily deal together. LLC is going to be the best thing for you. Or maybe it's just you yourself. You're going to own the multifamily property. Again, limited liability company is the way we're going to do it. But some things to keep in mind though. So when you're going to put together a multifamily, you're going to create an LLC right here. And typically this LLC will be set up in the state where the property is located. There may be some exceptions to that based upon your financing. If you're looking for institutional financing, then this LLC may be a Delaware LLC. Okay, a lot of times we'll do a Delaware LLC and then we'll foreign file it in the state where the property is located. Certain lenders, especially institutional lenders, they're hung up on Delaware. They think for whatever reason it gives them more protections. So that's how those will oftentimes be structured. So you create the LLC, and this is a single asset entity LLC. That means the only thing it will own is that particular property. So you're going to own your apartment building inside of this limited liability company. And then of course you might be the owner down here, and we'll get into this in another moment here about who else you could have as owners instead. But you're going to own it through there. Now, the owning is different many times from the operating of this structure. You could definitely operate it under this LLC because you're going to have management involved. But if you're going to self-manage it, then I would suggest you also create a corporation up here or another LLC, Corp or LLC, to serve as the manager of this property. Manager of the property. So if you're going to employ people to run the building, then this is where you would employ them, up here through the corporation. And this LLC then would contract with the corp for the management activity. So we're going to separate out the employees from the ownership of the property. And here's why. My concern is with those employees, that they could hurt themselves, they could be involved in a car accident and hurt someone else, and I don't want my property tied up in some lawsuit because of something my employee's done. Or maybe it has nothing to do with injuries. Maybe it's just that you fire an employee and they turn around and sue your business and asserting, well, I worked 20 extra minutes every day for 3 weeks and I wasn't paid overtime. And so now your business is being sued by employees for not paying overtime. That could be a real problem for you. I give you an example of that. One of my clients, they own an apartment building like this inside of a limited liability company. This is before I started working with them. And they had a restaurant in that building that they owned as well. Well, a couple of the employees were changing shifts, and they weren't telling the owner and the manager of the restaurant that they were switching shifts. And so what happens when they ended up firing one of the employees came back and they sued for not paying overtime. And they said, well, we didn't have you down for any overtime wages. They say, oh yeah, I worked an extra 3 hours. Well, the only reason they worked that is because they'd switched shifts, and they didn't tell them because they didn't want management to know they were switching these shifts. However, does that get the management off the hook? Not at all. They're still suing the entity. The entity is going to be held liable for not paying overtime. So you want to keep those employees away from your real estate because that claim could hit your real estate and then tie that property up. So with these types of structures, we're going to have the single asset right here. This entity here would be taxed as a partnership. all right? Or it'll be taxed as an S Corp if it's just one owner. So we gotta have either partnership or S Corp. And the reason why we wanna do that is we have to make sure it's filed on a tax return. You want a tax return on your multifamily properties because you want to make sure that you can track your income and expenses. So if you want to sell this, maybe this is a stabilization deal where you're getting it up, having the property stabilized, and you're going to flip it. The lenders that are going to come in for your buyer, they're going to want to see the numbers. And the way you show them the numbers, they can verify them is through tax returns. So always have your entity filed as a tax return. So again, don't mix properties, just have that one property there. And then you go out and buy another one, of course, set up a separate LLC for that next property that you're going to acquire. Just like that. Now, as far as ownership is concerned, I have you down here. If you want anonymity, then I would structure it like this. You could have it set up where these state specific, let's say this is Oklahoma, they're all down here owned by a Delaware LLC like this, and then you own the Delaware LLC. So that would be a way to handle it to get yourself anonymity. And I know in a lot of my videos I talk about Wyoming. However, when we're dealing with multifamily commercial properties, my preference is to go to Delaware because the lenders on multifamily commercial, they're more comfortable in my experience in working with Delaware than Wyoming. Wyoming seems to scare them. Nevada really scares them. So give them what they want. Delaware is a little more expensive. It's going to run you $300 a year in state filing fees versus $50 for Wyoming, but it's going to help out with that underwriting process. So by doing it this way, if anybody looks at this LLC or they look at this LLC, it points them back to here and they don't see you because Delaware doesn't list any information about the owners or the managers of a limited liability company. So I would typically go with that structure right there for my residential or for my multifamily properties. Now you probably heard about series LLCs. I've got a few videos on that. You can watch. Do not use a series LLC for this type of investing. This type of investing right here needs its own limited liability companies. The only time I would use a series LLC is if it's residential real estate, and of course you're buying property in a state that recognizes a series limited liability company. There are some court cases now that are working their way through the Delaware courts regarding creditors of individual cells on certain types of loans that are on with commercial properties and UCC1 filings, and determining do they spread across the cells or are they cell specific. We're not going to get in the weeds on this particular issue, so just to suffice this, keep these types of buildings completely separate. And the fact is that a lot of lenders are not familiar with the cell arrangement with a series LLC because these loans, as you know, many times they're asset-based loans, experience-based loans, so this isn't so much of an income-based loan. They're going to allow you to take title in the name of an entity because it's a commercial deal. And when you bring them something such as a cell of a series LLC, they're not accustomed to seeing that. That's just going to probably torpedo that deal for you right out of the gate. So go with the limited liability company, straight up LLC. And then if you want that anonymity component, look at using a Delaware company. If you're going to be managing the property yourself, set up a property management company up here. If you're outsourcing it, you wouldn't need this. If I was going to hire a third-party manager to handle all my stuff, then I wouldn't use that entity there. You could just outsource it out with the third property manager. My name is Clint Coons with Anderson Business Advisors. This was videos on how to protect yourself for multifamily apartment investing.